Shalom and welcome to another episode in our ongoing series called Faith Journeys with God in the Land. Today we're walking through Hezekiah's tunnel here at the city of David. So the adventure begins. This is one of the most exciting discoveries in all of Israel, not only Jerusalem, and we're starting here at the Gihon Spring, where King Solomon was sworn into kingship. But we're walking through a tunnel that was chiseled by King Hezekiah, somewhere right before 701 BC. So what we're going to do is I'm going to turn my camera around, and you're going to see what we're walking through starting here at the spring. So what an amazing discovery, and really an experience. As we understand that the water that flowed back in the days of the Jebusites is still flowing today. The water's a little deeper here at the beginning of the tunnel. This is just an entrance into Hezekiah's tunnel. And it was this king, Judean king, who chiseled out of the bedrock for 1,700 feet a tunnel for the purpose of bringing water from the Gihon Spring to the southern end of the city. This was discovered back in the late 1800s, and here's the tunnel itself. So how exciting it is to walk through this tunnel. (1,700 feet). You can see the chisel marks on both sides, and because of an inscription that was found at the very end of this tunnel, we even know how the tunnel was cut from bedrock using chisels. 2 teams of rock cutters were used. One started at the spring and the other at the southern end. And as the inscription talks about, once they met in the middle, they heard each other's voices and picks and axes. And finally, the opening was made and the water flowed 1,200 cubits. It's really a remarkable engineering feat. The water flows gently, as we read about in Isaiah chapter 8, verse 6. It only drops about 2 feet, 2 meters or 6 feet. This chiseling of the tunnel is mentioned in 2 Kings chapter 20 and 2 Chronicles 32. I'm going to turn the camera around so that you can see me now as I carefully walk through this tunnel. There's a few people ahead of me, but this is so cool. Every group that we lead, we experience this, and what an awesome encounter with the Bible, because this is mentioned in the scriptures, and certainly we can now walk through it on every trip that we offer. So what life lesson can we learn about from Hezekiah's tunnel? Well, the journey of faith with God sometimes requires us to walk the narrow pathway. In this case, it's a narrow tunnel. In fact, the width of the tunnel pretty much is shoulder width. And you can see, perhaps above me, the ceiling at times is only 5 feet, maybe 4.5 feet after the meeting point. So it takes a heart of courage to walk the narrow path, in this case, the narrow tunnel. I'm going to turn the camera around again as we take a look at how this tunnel meanders. It was cut again with the use of 2 rock teams. And we know that they met in the middle somewhere, but before the meeting point, they actually had to correct themselves. Perhaps that's a good life lesson for us too. Sometimes we feel that the pathway, even narrow ones, are leading us in one direction, and yet sometimes we have to make a turn. We trust God in doing that. Sometimes life situations feel as if they are pressing in upon us. Sort of like walking through this tunnel. It's a narrow passageway. And sometimes that can cause fear, apprehension. And yet we follow God's guidance. We seek courage from Him. And as we walk the narrow pathway, we trust Him all the way. And maybe one final life lesson that we can learn here is that there's always light at the end of the tunnel. And we have our flashlights on. You really can't do this without a flashlight because it's pitch black. It really is. But there is always light at the end of our tunnel, especially those tunnels that are difficult to pass through. And yet we know that God provides us His presence all the way through these dark tunnels of life. I can't imagine being one of these guys who were part of the rock cutting team back in the days of Hezekiah. In fact, most likely, as we know that Sennacherib, the Assyrian, was here surrounding Jerusalem in 701 BC, it's most likely that Hezekiah in advance prepared the city even a few years prior to 701 BC. And that's even a good life lesson for us too, in terms of preparing in advance for maybe the difficult situations in life that arise in our pathway or walk of faith. This is 1,700 feet long. Now, some of our challenges of life, the tunnels, the dark tunnels of life, are just that. They're long. They're difficult to get through. But indeed, there's always light at the end of the tunnel. So anyway, we're making our way through, and I'm glad that you could join us for this adventure. Just think, we're connecting with the Bible, a tunnel that's mentioned in the Bible, and now we're walking through together. So if you are in one of these tunnels of life, be encouraged that God goes with you. even though it may be narrow and pressing in upon you. Have no fear, take courage. There's always light at the end of the tunnel. The ceiling here is quite low. I have to stoop a little lower to not scratch my head or bump my head. So allow God to guide your steps today in those tunnels that you experience, and trust in Him. Again, thanks for joining me for this adventurous walk through Hezekiah's tunnel here in the city of David. Be encouraged, and until next time, shalom. I'm hanging in here a little longer because we're coming close to the meeting point where the rock cutter teams met. We're going to soon see where they actually made a slight correction in the tunnel. They most likely followed some kind of natural fissure. And here's one of these turns. We're going to bend a little to the right and then 90 degrees to the left. And then we'll be soon at the meeting point. Probably it was around here where the two teams of rock cutters could hear each other's voices and picks. And they finally broke through. Looks like there's a few people ahead of us, but this is the meeting point coming up. We'll soon see the chisel marks change direction. You can see the face of the tunnel here. And let me get on the other side. Let me switch around here. And here we are now at the meeting point. You can see
We're getting right to the meeting point.
Natalie is leading the way here for us, but this is the meeting point where the two teams of rock cutters met. So again, thanks for joining me for this adventurous walk, and until next time, shalom.